Morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz and welcome to your detailed forecast update for December 9th, 2024. We have a lot to crack through today. Once again, starting off with rainfall expected across central Queensland, extending down into the southeast as well. We could see some severe thunderstorms with heavy falls over there over the coming couple of days. We'll touch on the weather across the northeast of New South Wales and into the southeast of Queensland as well. We'll talk about tropical weather across interior parts of the nation as well, and the heat wave down in southwest and Western Australia. And then we have 3 tropical lows expected to develop offshore from Western Australia, and we'll talk about the chances of a Gulf of Carpentaria tropical low as well. But all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. The support lately has been much appreciated. But let's get stuck this morning straight into things across the central coast of Queensland. We'll also talk about the far north in this part as well before we get to the thunderstorms in the southeast. So we do have quite a bit of rainfall coming through over the next couple of days, which is going to excite a lot of people across central Queensland, powered by this low pressure system connected to a surface trough that is extending through parts of New South Wales this time. And now not only is this low pressure system going to bring some heavy rainfall, it's also going to bring some warm temperatures into the western central parts of Queensland, with temperatures in Longreach expected to tickle 40 degrees today, and across much of central Queensland as well, temperatures in excess of 40 degrees expected. Now this surface trough running across the southern half of Queensland, extending between Birdsville across to about Gympie and Kingaroy in the Sunshine Coast, is expected to fire up some decent thunderstorms around the Charleville and Roma area later on this afternoon and evening, and some of these do have the chance to be severe, especially with heavy rainfall, considering they are going to be some slower moving pulse thunderstorms. The risk of heavy rainfall and isolated damaging winds is also possible around the Charleville and Roma area, extending as far inland as about Windora. Now, as we push this forecast through, you can see this low pressure system slowly crawls further towards the east. You can see it here, more thunderstorms expected in the same general area, with the chance of potentially severe ones around the Charleville and Roma area throughout the course of tomorrow afternoon as well. This low pressure system slowly dragging them further towards the northeast as well as we get closer to the central Queensland coastline. Then it is Wednesday when this low pressure system starts to materialise, with some great rainfall expected across the far northern reaches of the central areas of Queensland around Forsyth, Georgetown and Corumba. We'll be seeing some great rainfall out there by the looks of things, north of Maxwellton and Mount Isa, and then further towards this central Queensland coastline, extending between Charters Towers down to about Emerald and Dingo. Some good rainfall also expected there on Wednesday afternoon. Now, the rainfall continues through Wednesday afternoon and evening. In fact, into early Thursday morning, we're going to see this concentrated area of low pressure begin to spin up around the Ogmore and Rockhampton area, and I believe Thursday morning we're going to see some heavy showers materialise between Mackay and Rockhampton. I was highlighting areas between Ellie Beach, Bowen, and then right down towards Mackay and St. Lawrence as being the risk of heavy rainfall yesterday, but it does look like on Thursday morning we're going to see some heavy showers spin up just offshore from the coastline into the Whitsundays area, and then down in towards the Wide Bay Burnett area around the Rockhampton and Yeppoon sort of districts. And then this rainfall will continue through early Thursday morning, pipe up in thunderstorms again in Thursday afternoon, and then draw further away from the coastline as Friday pulls on. Still though, some showers and thunderstorms also expected between Thursday night and Friday morning. Thunderstorms firing up once again on Friday afternoon further inland, but again they're not expected to be too major. These showers here are going to be pretty pesky for the most part between Wednesday afternoon right through Thursday morning, where they could be quite heavy at times as mentioned in this general area here, and then through Friday afternoon we'll be seeing a couple more thunderstorms fire up before this rainfall does clear out by the weekend. Still though, thunderstorms persistent through the central Queensland coastline on Saturday as well. The rainfall finally clearing out by the looks of things on Sunday and Monday. Still a few showers lingering around, but all of this rainfall is going to be very, very welcome for the central Queensland area. Now, I know I haven't gone into great detail for the forecast for some locations, so I'll just get to that in a second, but I would like to give a brief rainfall overview between Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday, because the rainfall accumulation is looking very healthy now. And now outside of Bowen, great rainfall expected on both Thursday and Friday. That's going to equate to rainfall accumulations up towards 100 millimetres there. Townsville, similar story, some good rainfall expected on both Thursday and Friday, but the rainfall there being slightly more disappointing at around 40 millimetres. Mackay is going to be a bit of a wild card with the rainfall. They're kind of too far close to the coast to get decent rainfall from thunderstorms, and they're kind of a little bit too far embedded into inland, where the coast kind of cuts away to get those showers that are going to be received around the Ogmore and Rockhampton area. So Mackay is just a little bit of a wild card at this time. They're only expecting 15 millimetres of rain, but if you check other forecast models, there is slightly more on their cards there, so we will wait and see what is actually on the cards for Mackay. But you can see the Access G3 really going to town with some rainfall that's expected to funnel itself onto the coastline. I'll get to that in just a moment. Further inland, Glendon, Moranbah, Claremont and Emerald with thunderstorms anywhere between sort of the 5 to 25 millimetre mark, the majority of that coming through on both Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday nights. After about Thursday night, and not really much rainfall expected there. And then the rainfall around Ogmore, Yeppoon and Rockhampton going to be between sort of 30 and 50 millimetres for the most part, which is good rainfall for them. Gladstone and Agnes Water, unfortunately the rainfall there isn't going to be too flash. Still 20 or 30 millimetres will be much welcome in these areas, but the rainfall there, I wouldn't get your hopes up. I'd take anything that comes as kind of a bit of a bonus amount of rainfall. I really wouldn't expect too too much around the Gladstone and Agnes Water area. Bundaberg slightly more up towards about 50 millimetres there. Again, that just might be because of a bias towards showers around the Bundaberg area, but in all fairness, Gladstone has been really dry so far this year, so it's no wonder the forecast models are reluctant to give Gladstone too much rainfall on the forecast. So we will just bring this forecast back to Thursday morning, because I really do feel like there is going to be a risk of some isolated very heavy falls. We could be seeing 6-hourly totals up towards 120 millimetres around the Ogmore area, and the reason for that is we're going to be seeing this onshore flow, some northerly winds streaming off from the Coral Sea, just funneling the rainfall into the shore here around the Ogmore and Rockhampton area, and that's just going to collide with the more mountainous terrain along the coastline here and provide with some very healthy rainfall accumulations. And you can see it's reciprocated between the Axis G3 forecast model as well. Just the Axis G3 forecast has been calling for this rainfall at a slightly different timestamp. You can see the rainfall here piping up on Thursday night into early Friday morning, for the most part around the kind of Proserpine, Mackay sort of area. There's a bit more of an interesting thing on the forecast here. It does look like there will be a bit of an onshore flow materializing then again for Friday morning, so we do really have two pockets of rainfall, or two 6-hour windows, that being Thursday morning and Friday morning, to watch for the rainfall around the Ogmore area, and then Friday morning around the Mackay area. Now, if I've left your head spinning on this forecast, first of all, I don't really blame you. Sometimes these forecasts can be a bit hard to decipher, and I'm aware of that myself. If I have left your head spinning, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll be able to give you a detailed forecast for your location if that helps you in any way. But yeah, certainly some good rainfall on the card, certainly something to get a bit more excited for. Now, just before we head up into the far north of Queensland, I would like to just briefly touch on the southeast and into the northeast of New South Wales as well. And I should have done this at the start of the video, to be honest. Now, take a look at this. You can see there is going to be a couple of showers and storms piping up throughout Tuesday afternoon. The storms kind of stopping at around the Chinchilla, Wollongara and Warwick area, not really making it into the southeast of Queensland. But it looks like there's going to be some showers tending to rainfall at times around the Brisbane metro area from about Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday evening. Could get a little bit heavier at times along the southern extremities of the Sunshine Coast. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a couple of just very slow-moving heavy bands of rainfall that produce 50 to 75 millimetres tomorrow afternoon as well. So take extra care when you're on the evening commute. Those roads are going to be quite slippery with some of this rainfall. And then also down into the Gold Coast as well, a couple of showers there into the Scenic Rim. Also going to be pretty slow-moving for the most part. The chance of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon around the Grafton and Lismore area. In fact, if we take a look at the convective forecast models here, you can see later on the forecast period really something quite gnarly expected as well. And just considering the nature of the atmosphere tomorrow afternoon as well, there will be some energy in the atmosphere for these thunderstorms to kind of grab hold of and really promote good thunderstorm growth. There's going to be great humidity and also pretty good temperature values as well tomorrow. So into the mid-levels of the thunderstorms are going to have a pretty easy afternoon for the most part into the northeast of New South Wales. And I would also like to highlight that Grafton and Lismore probably a bit of a severe thunderstorm risk for tomorrow, but not really extending anywhere further south than Grafton. And just considering it is such a small pocket of the northeast of New South Wales, the forecast models can have a really hard time deciphering what is actually expected on the forecast for those locations. So I would take that forecast with a pretty heavy pinch of salt. But still, though, some good rainfall is on the cards, which is, of course, fantastic to see even at this time of the year. Now, starting from Monday or this afternoon into Wednesday, just over this 2.5 day forecast period, you can see the majority of the rainfall coming through Tuesday afternoon and into early Wednesday morning. Rainfall accumulation is expected to be between sort of 50 and 75 millimetres around the Kingaroy area, and then extending into about 50 millimetres into the northwestern suburbs rather of Brisbane. Brisbane itself expecting about 30 millimetres of rainfall. The Gold Coast, similar story as well, and depending on where the thunderstorms go in the northeast of New South Wales, and also where the thunderstorms go further inland from Chinchilla out towards Roma, and then from Goondiwindi across towards Wollongara, the rainfall there will be a little bit more hit and miss, but still accumulations between 5 and 25 millimetres do look quite possible across the majority of the northeast of New South Wales. Once again, some places are going to pick up some healthy rainfall, other places are going to miss out pretty much completely, so we'll keep an eye on things over into the northeast of New South Wales and into the southeast of Queensland. Don't get your hopes up right now, especially if you are desperate for rainfall in your area. There is certainly some good stuff that is possible on the forecast, most likely around the Kingaroy area in this just general pocket of the northwestern side of Brisbane, north of or outside of Maroochydore, and then towards the south of Gympie. The rainfall elsewhere still could be quite healthy indeed, so we will keep a close eye on this and see what the forecast is suggesting in tomorrow morning's update. Into the far north of Queensland now, just to round out the Queensland forecast of the Queensland side of things. 10-day rainfall accumulation, not looking anything crazy over the next 14 days rather, and even 10-day rainfall accumulation throughout the next week. We're not really looking at much rainfall either over the next 7 days. At least rainfall accumulations should be below about 50 or 60 millimetres along the far north coast, the exception to that being areas around Innisfail and Tully where rainfall accumulations quite often blow out there, but I still would be surprised if they picked up more than 150 millimetres over the next week. There is, however, some good rainfall coming through in the 7 to 14 day period. We'll take a look at that on the forecast right now. It's just the usual showery stuff streaming through over the next 7 days. Yes, you might get a couple of dry days towards the end of this week and into next weekend, and unfortunately I'm reading a lot of comments of them already being sick of the rainfall. Well, guys, it's only early December, so you've got months upon months of the rainfall to pipe up yet still, and it's going to do so again on Tuesday and Wednesday, the 17th and 18th of December. In fact, right in time for Christmas time, you can see the rainfall really does pipe up there, and it looks like we get a solid onshore flow with a lot of moisture being dragged into what could be a developing tropical low. More on that later on in the video, sometime into later next week, Thursday and Friday the 19th and 20th of December, and then into next fortnight's weekend, the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of December. Looks like we're going to get plenty of moisture dragged up into the far north of Queensland, and as such the rainfall accumulations there will be very elevated on the lead up to Christmas. And like I said, rainfall accumulations expected to be well in excess of the kind of 100 to 150 millimeter mark here, and in fact I will give you a more detailed answer to that. You can see just over that period from Tuesday the 17th of December onwards, rainfall accumulations, at least on this forecast here now, looking to be in excess of 150 millimeters for the locations. Innisfail and Tully always pick up far more rainfall than the forecast, in fact often double or triple, so I'd expect in excess of 200 millimeters there. Cairns in that 7-day forecast period, I'd be saying somewhere around kind of the 20 to 80 millimeter mark. I know that's a huge scope of uncertainty for Cairns, but just considering their sheltered nature, sometimes they pick up nothing, sometimes they pick up a decent amount of rainfall. Depending on where those winds come from, they're most likely to start out from the southeast, and as such Cairns will likely receive less rainfall, but they could swing around to the northeast later on in the week, and as such Cairns will likely pick up a little bit more rainfall. Again, just a bit of a wild card at this time. We will wait and see what the forecast has for Cairns in the next couple of days. Unfortunately, though, not reciprocated amongst the forecast models. You can see the GFS calling for basically squat on their forecast over the 7 to 14 day period, and same deal with the Axis G3, although the Axis G3 doesn't really penetrate that far out into the future. Still, though, decent rainfall is on the forecast over the next 10 days here and there, but the rainfall could be better on these forecasts at least. There could be better congruency, and as such I'm still a little bit uncertain with the forecast that I have just made for the far north of Queensland. It is in the distant future though, so again we don't really have to worry about it at this time. Certainly no flooding concerns either, and also no tropical low concerns that I would also like to add. And let's head over into the southwest of Western Australia before turning this video fully tropical. I would just like to talk about the heat waves. I have had an extreme heat warning fire up on my phone over the last couple of hours, and I reckon a lot of people around the Perth metro area have also had that as well. You can see this low pressure system now beginning to develop off the west coast here, and that's going to provide some significant temperatures throughout the course of today. Mount Magnet and Meekatharra are expecting tops up into the early 40s, in fact mid 40s around Kew and Mount Magnet, up towards 43, 44, potentially even warmer than that as well. Thunderstorms will save the day for the Goldfields, expecting a few blow-ups around the Kalgoorlie area extending in from the trough line, then extending between a line of Panawansia inland through to about Warburton. Actually, that will save the temperatures further inland as well. Still, though, nothing crazy expected in terms of thunderstorms. Could be a couple of severe ones with isolated pockets of heavy rainfall and damaging winds. Perth expecting a warm top of 36 degrees today. It's going to be quite a warm one indeed, and it's going to be a warm night as well, with an offshore breeze expected to drag in those warm temperatures from the weed belt. Now, such those temperatures, they're not really going to drop below about 21 or 22 for Perth, unfortunately. The feels like will drop, though, just considering the easterly that will pipe up in the morning. Temperatures can be even warmer on Tuesday, up towards 44, 45, even 46 outside of Kalbarri in the Murchison region. It's going to get really warm up there. Perth expecting a very warm top of 37 degrees as well, and a little bit cooler out to the wheat belt around sort of that 35 to 36 degree mark. Those winds are going to keep things a little bit cooler, but they will elevate those fire danger ratings quite substantially. Wednesday will be the hot one. We've been looking at this on the forecast for the last couple of days. Perth expect a top of 41 degrees on Wednesday. Most likely will become our first 40 degree day of summer. You can see tops around sort of that 41, 42 degree mark outside of Gingin as well. It's going to be very warm indeed, and I'm excited because I'm going to be getting offshore out to Rottnest, have a little bit of a crack at the fish, have a little bit of a crack at the craypots as well. Be getting offshore away from this hot weather here, because it is going to be brutal. You can see temperatures not dropping below 30 degrees before midnight on Wednesday either. Those temperatures are going to rise very quickly on Thursday as well, after an overnight minimum of 27 degrees. You can see Thursday a top of 38 expected. Going to be warmer out towards Northam and York as well, up towards 42 out there, and then Friday it'll bounce back once again for Perth, being a bit of a scorcher there. The low pressure system could drag a little bit further inland, and as such the temperature for Friday is a little bit more uncertain. It could either be around sort of that 33 or 34 degree mark, or it could be up towards that 40 or 41 degree mark. So again, we will keep a close eye on things here. It looks like there's going to be a lot of thunderstorms as well further inland as well. Just taking a look at this forecast, it looks like at Friday could be a bit of a stormy afternoon and evening, which means that humidity will likely rise as well. Thankfully, it doesn't look like the temperatures are going to rise that much on Saturday. You can see temperatures or after an overnight low of about 20 degrees of Perth temperatures, refusing to rise above sort of that 27 or 28 degree mark. And it looks like those temperatures remain a little bit cooler throughout the course of next week. Still going to be a scorcher out to the wheat belt. It looks like temperatures kind of bounce back again for Perth into the early parts of next week. But again, thankfully, it doesn't look like those temperatures are going to stick around. And then just for a bit of fun's sake, into the later parts of December, to the December 20th, this is, take a look at how warm it's going to get along the Pilbara coastline, up towards 47 degrees Celsius. So again, it does get very warm up there this time of the year. There's nothing really strange about this as well outside of Panawansia, and Onslow temperatures up towards 47 on the lead up to Christmas. It is just this time of the year now that we're going to be talking about temperatures like this, 47 or 48 even outside of Coral Bay here on the 22nd of December. And it, just really, really warm all around across Western Australia from now on. 50 degrees now on the forecast outside of Exmouth. Now, this is a little bit of a fluke at this time from the models. I don't think it's actually going to get to 50 degrees, but it could get very close to it. Looks like it is going to be a hot Christmas across much of Western Australia. A little bit of a wild card, a little bit early to tell for Perth at this time, but if I was to put money on it, I was going to say it's going to be into the higher 30s at the very minimum this Christmas. It does look like it's going to be a warm one indeed. Certainly a Christmas that you'd want to spend indoors in the air conditioning because of the temperatures, that's for sure, and especially across interior parts of Western Australia. Now, we've spent long enough talking about Western Australia. Still have a lot to get through for Western Australia as well in terms of the tropical forecast, and I would just like to break that down for you right now quite simply. In short, we have 3 tropical lows. I'm going to go through them one by one. The first 2 are going to be the ones that are going to be close to Western Australia, and then the last one I'm going to talk about is the one over on the Cocos-Keeling Islands. So they're not in chronological order, but I will make it all very easy to digest and very easy to understand for you. And of course, you can ask questions in the comment section down below as well. So this system here, Tropical Low 02U, is developing quite nicely offshore from Western Australia now. It hasn't really done much over the past 24 hours, but it's starting to organise some convection together. And if you do have a well-trained eye and you've been looking at cyclones on the satellite for the last couple of years, you'd be able to tell that something is starting to spin up here. Bit of a convective bubble bath offshore from Broome. You can see it about 200 nautical miles north of Port Hedland at this time. In fact, offshore from the Rowley Shoals at this time. The wind observations on the Rowley Shoals, nothing crazy either. Winds of about 35 k's an hour out of the east, and then a ship over here, winds 41 kilometres an hour out of the southwest. So it's by no means close to tropical cyclone status at this time, but it will continue to steadily develop over the coming couple of days, bringing a line of thunderstorms pretty consistently throughout the Pilbara region every afternoon and evening throughout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And as such, rainfall accumulations there are going to amount quite significantly, and that's kind of the only impact that this storm is expected to bring, is those impacts of showers and thunderstorms into the Pilbara region pretty much every afternoon for the next 4 or 5 days. This system here does look like it tries to get to tropical cyclone status here. You can see it offshore. We should probably be looking at the wind observations here. You can see winds approaching gale force winds. In fact, they do get up towards gale force by Tuesday evening and into early Wednesday morning, but I don't think the Bureau of Meteorology will classify this as a tropical cyclone if it does only attain gale force winds in one quadrant. The Bureau of Meteorology likes it when more than half of the storm's total surface area has gale force winds, and as such, I don't think this system's going to do that, and it will be a bit of a wild card, a bit of a reach to see this system named as a tropical cyclone. It's not really expected to become quite strong. I'm going to give it a 50-50 chance right now of becoming a tropical cyclone. If it was to do so, it's likely to remain very weak throughout its life, and will most likely have a very short life as well, getting named maybe early Wednesday morning and then dissipating Thursday morning as well. So a very weak, very brief system, dying off by Friday and Saturday, really not becoming anything. It's absorbed by a sea breeze, in fact, by Saturday, and just gets blown to smithereens at that time. So yeah, nothing too crazy expected from this system here. Certainly no impacts on Western Australia, bar those thunderstorms that are going to be firing up and causing those good rainfall accumulations across the Pilbara district. And you can see it here on the rainfall forecast, just those steady thunderstorms expected every night, those rainfall accumulations averaging between 80 and 150 millimetres. Very healthy stuff indeed. Again, I think 150 millimetres might be a bit of a stretch, but I would be surprised if areas around Marble Bar and Newman that are wetter than you'd expect as well. In fact, annual accumulations there can amount up towards 400 or 500 millimetres. So those areas could receive up towards 150 or 200 millimetres over the next 14 days just from those thunderstorms that are expected to fire up over the next week from this tropical low as it slowly develops. Now we'll pull this forecast back as well. We're going to flick it over to the GFS forecast model because the GFS is calling for something pretty much completely different for the next tropical low. Now this is tropical low 05 here. It's going to be developing offshore from Darwin here in the Northern Territory. Really doesn't materialise into anything until probably about Thursday when it becomes kind of recognisable on the forecast here. And you can see it skims across the northern parts of Western Australia, slowly pulling itself together, becoming a fully fledged tropical cyclone by Saturday or Sunday the 14th or 15th of December, most likely Sunday morning, and then rapidly intensifies briefly up towards Category 2 or 3 strength tropical cyclone status, moving offshore from the Rowley Shoals, and then skirting across the West Australian coastline. It's a much smaller, much more compact system here. You can see it not really bringing any measurable impacts to Western Australia either before moving further offshore and then suffering the same death basically as Tropical O02U did just a couple of days later. In fact, this system is going to be Tropical O02U, just slightly stronger and following the footsteps about 5 or 6 days later. Now, the reason why we're looking at the GFS forecast model here, you're probably quite confused, is because the ECMWF just says absolutely nothing on the forecast. Now, this isn't because the ECMWF is stupid or it's calling for something completely different, or the chances of this tropical cyclone are completely gone and I'm just a clickbaiting scumbag YouTuber, but the reason for that is because this system is very, very hard to predict, considering the fact that it hasn't even formed yet. So the ECMWF is really having a bit of trouble here. It's this convective blow up here on north of the Northern Territory, and as such, the ECMWF hasn't recognised this as a developing tropical low, and it's really struggling to predict its path as such, and that's all well and good. The GFS does a really good job at predicting tropical lows, even they haven't formed yet, and you can see it's done a pretty good job here, and I would say that the chances of this system becoming a tropical cyclone by next weekend are at least a 50-50 once again, and it's got a good chance of intensifying into a relatively significant system as well of category 2 or 3 strength proportions offshore from the WA coastline. Again, no impacts expected on land. And then just offshore from the Cocos Keeling Islands as well, you can see there is a bit of a tropical spin up there as well. Plenty of tropical lows to talk about in this video here, but this system now really suffering at the hands of wind shear. It's not really expected to become anything as well over the coming couple of days. If it does become a tropical cyclone system, it's probably only got a couple more hours to do so before it completely dissipates sometime on Wednesday, getting absorbed up into the system, or the developing system 02U, its energy at least getting developed into this system by Thursday afternoon and evening. So it's really only got about another 12-hour window to intensify. And again, absolutely no threat to Western Australia. That's the common denominator with all of these systems that we've just talked about. They are no threat to the Northern Territory or Western Australia in the slightest at this time. And then much later on into the forecast period, here's our 4th tropical low. We are going to see a bit of a monsoon trough extend across the Coral Sea, and again, that's reciprocated between the other forecast models as well. The GFS just calling for it to be a little bit higher up, and as such, I do expect a bit of tropical energy or a tropical low after Christmas time into the New Year's period as well. That's just my long-range stab at this time for the far north of Queensland into the Northern Territory. Again, take that with a very, very heavy pinch of salt as well at this time, but that is just my long-range stab in the dark for the weather forecast up into the Queensland and the Northern Territory area, but we will keep a close eye on things over the coming couple of days. This video has run for long enough, and if you are bored, I don't blame you, but if you do have any questions or comments or information, please leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But that is all from me today. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. I could not run this show without them, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.